I never stopped wanting a hug and looking for a hug, but I never got one hug as a kid. I didn't know what other boys experienced. You know, I did see kids at school and their mothers dropping them off or coming to the school and giving them hugs, or at the Christmas assembly, parents were there. So, mine weren't, but some parents were there, and I'd see them give hugs. So I didn't understand. So I want to describe, what violence I experienced. I know the beatings were violence, but they were framed for me in that it was discipline, it was to make me behave. And as my uncle beat me one day and I said, "What did I do? I'll do it differently, please." He'd say, "That's just in case you think of sinning." And so I thought, I didn't know what to believe. I had no idea. I just knew that they were telling me this stuff, and I kind of bought into it. So, but some of the things that happened to me that were violations of my rights, and violations, a child should never have seen. My family made rules, and the rules in the house were built upon religion. So I was not allowed at school to participate in any sports, art, any kinds of things that weren't reading, writing, and arithmetic, because they're all sin. I wasn't allowed to have friends because none of the kids went to our church 45 miles away in Sylvan Lake. So all the kids in our school, were out of touch. I couldn't have a friend. Later, I did defy a little bit, and we have these two friends, and they were two First Nations friends, and they were in white foster homes. So violence, besides my father coming home and wrecking the house, and my aunt sending me downstairs around 5 and hide the knives and do this and make sure this and make sure your dad, when they're fighting with my uncle, don't make sure he doesn't tip over the oil stove, which was a horrifying thing for me, because if the house burned up and my brother's in the attic, and if my brother burned, it'd be my fault and I'd lose my brother, and that was the most painful thing I could think of. And I was terrified. I lived my whole childhood terrified. I terrified of my uncle's beatings, terrified of my father. My father coming home, wreck the place. He just become like a raging bull. And then at times he would come to talk to me, and I'm pretending I'm sleeping, and he would make me promises. "I promise I'll get you a new mom, and we'll get a new farm and get the hell out of this hellhole." And because my father wasn't religious. Sometimes he would even hit me while I was sleeping. I don't know why. He would grab me. He raped me. I don't know if he thought I was a girl, or I don't know what he thought. He was drunk. I don't know what he was thinking. And all I wanted was a hug. When my father was away on his drinking trips or wherever you go during the day, my uncle was the violent one. My uncle, I'll give you a couple of examples of my uncle. He liked to make fun of me. He liked to laugh at me, at my misfortune. One night, I'm 9 years old, he sends me to the barn, or out in the yard, to get the axe. I'd left the axe, because my job was to chop wood and fill up the wood box for the cook stove. And I left the axe out there, And in the summertime, if it's cloudy, it's so dark out there, you can't see the hand in front of your face. I mean, the next farm is, half a mile or a mile away or whatever, and they got the yard light shut off at, at night anyways. And he sent me out there, and the yard light's on, I'm running towards the wood chopping block, and he shuts the yard light off. And I can't see. And all I remember is all the stories about the farmers, how the wolves, broke it, got into the chicken house and killed all the chickens or killed the lambs or whatever, and bobcats killing chickens. That's why they had high chicken wire fences, so they couldn't get in. And so all I'm thinking about is, oh my God, there's the wolves and the wolves and the coyotes and the bobcats, and I'm terrified. I'm freaking out because I'm scared of the dark, anyways. And I'm running around, and I'm, so scared that it pushes me into this place. I was going around in circles. I couldn't, if I started walking, I didn't know where the house was, and I was terrified. And I learned how to deal with fear at 9. Because I said to myself, I'm going, come here, wolves, I'm going to rip your heads off. Come here. Like, I felt inside like I could rip every wolf's head off. In reality, they would have killed me. But I felt that, and I rose above the fear. And it kind of gave me a sense of calm in some way, and I started walking around, stumbling around, and then I found the pump house. And the pump house, I know the pump house door was facing towards the house, so I walked in a straight line, and I found the house, and I went in the house. Everybody had gone to bed, and I went upstairs and laid on my bed, barely breathing. I just survived it. Next morning, they all laughed. It was funny. Now, maybe some people would just laugh and say, oh, play the trick on the kid. I guess if you were a loved, nurtured, and supported kid, and they put their arms around you and give you a big hug saying, were you scared? I scared you, or whatever. I think it's still a harmful thing, but I didn't have anybody or anything. So I had no way to process that. We were just playing a joke on you, or, whatever. It was real to me. And they all laughed. I'm going to tell you 3 things. So that's 1. 9 years old again, my uncle. I'm milking cows. We all had our cows. There's 25 cows we were milking. We were milking our cow. I was milking my cow. And across the barn floor he was milking his cow. Now this cow was kicking because we lived on hundreds of acre land, and they had a swamp on part of it, so the cows would go into the swamp and drink water from the lake and cut their tets as they drag them through the slough grass, like little paper cuts on it. And so when they start milking it and it gets wet, it starts burning, so the cow's uncomfortable, and there's this pail of this stinky salve that they would put on, and they could milk the cow. Well, he just didn't have the patience, and he took a 2x4 and started beating this cow over the back, and he beat this cow, broke its back, and killed it in front of me. And I was so terrified. I was looking at him, and he caught me looking at him, and he says, and you're next. That's just a smidgen of some of the violence.